A pharmaceutical executive recently had an interview with the Financial Times, and he argues that as a pharmaceutical company, price gouging is the moral thing to do because you want to return as much money as possible to your shareholders. And I'm not kidding. This was a statement that was literally made by someone who has no shame. So the pharmaceutical company executive I'm talking about is Nirmal Mulye, and he is the CEO of Nostrum Laboratories. And he just recently engaged in some price gouging of his own, and he was asked about it. So he compared his decision to increase the price of his decision to do this to an art dealer increasing the price of a work of art, okay? So let me give you, yeah, I know, because a work of art is what you need to survive. Now the drug that he increased the price for is for people suffering from bladder infections. And Nostrum Laboratories more than quadrupled the price of a bottle of nitrofurantoin from $447.75 to $2,392. Why? Why did that happen? Well, the FDA realized that there were impurities with the gel capsule version of this drug. And so as a result, the FDA took that drug off the market, and then the pill form remained. But since the pill form remained and the capsule liquid gel was taken off, essentially what happened was there was a shortage in supply. And so this executive's like, there's a shortage of supply, there's less competition. So guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna increase the prices, even though the World Health Organization has said that this is an essential drug for healthcare. Now, here's what he had to say. His quotes are insane. He says, I think it's a moral requirement to make money when you can, to sell the product for the highest price.
No, that's not a moral requirement. Sometimes it's the opposite of a moral requirement, but there is no moral requirement that says you must maximize your profit. You want to maximize your profit, no problem, I understand it, but it's not a moral requirement.
It's a profit requirement. Yes. Let's keep it real. Moral requirements and profit requirements are two very different things.
That's going to get to the perspective of a lot of these folks in the business community in a second. I'll talk about that.
He also says, the point here is the only other choice is the brand at a higher price. It is still a saving regardless of whether it's a big one or not.
So let me explain why he says that. Because there's one other factor that's leading him to drive up the price. It's that there's only two competitors. And the other one is Casper Pharma. So no wonder Casper over here is not talking about them.
No, I mean.
I'm kidding.
I mean, I would if you gave me an opportunity to finish my
okay. So anyway, Casper Pharma raised their prices to $2,800 a bottle.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and now his company is sitting there at $474 going, well, there's only one other competitor and they're $2,800. Oh, I got an idea. If I just go a little below them at $2,392, everybody's gonna buy mine and I'm gonna quadruple the price. And presumably he was already making money at $474, otherwise he wouldn't have sold it.
Exactly.
I know how business works, okay? So all the rest of it is margin. All the rest of it goes straight into your profits. So it's not like, oh my God, I couldn't have made this drug that helps you with urinary tract infection if I don't charge $2,300 for it. No, I could have made it and made a really good living and have a very successful company at $474. But this is called an oligopoly. So the two of us have cornered the market here. You don't have any other choice, or you could just continue to have a urinary tract infection. So we know you don't want one, so we're gonna price gouge you and then call that moral.
It's pretty sick. And by the way, he might be the only person who is at least publicly and openly defending Martin Shkreli, right? Now that was the pharma bro who did price gouging of his own. He decided to price gouge medication for people who are suffering from AIDS. By the way, he's currently in prison because of how he defrauded his investors. But anyway, here's what he had to say about Shkreli. I agree with Martin Shkreli that when he raised the price of his drug, he was within his rights because he had to reward his shareholders. So let's just stop for a second. People's lives don't matter, right? I mean, we often talk about how corporations are amoral. But no, a lot of corporations are immoral. Like if you are the CEO of a pharmaceutical company and you know that price gouging could lead to the deaths of people who rely on that drug, you're amoral. There's no question about whether you're immoral, not amoral. Like you're just a bad person. This guy is like, well, yeah, of course my shareholders are way more important than the people who need this drug. Screw the people who need this drug. We want to make money.
So a couple of things here, and they really do live in a different world and they have a completely different perspective, and that's why they can't even understand this. He doesn't even understand those are controversial comments. So one part of it, and I want to give you more context too. Shkreli took pills that were $13.50, which is already really, I mean, for every single pill you have to pay $13.50. It was already really high. He raised it to $750 per pill. Okay, I mean, and he's like, well, if you don't take the pill, you're gonna die, so pay me. Now, he went to jail for a different reason. And by the way, it was defrauding his shareholders, because in the business world, the most sacrosanct principle and morality there is deliver for shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, really let that sink in for a second. He didn't go to prison for price gouging AIDS medication. He went to prison because he did his shareholders dirty.
As I told you during the Bernie Madoff scandal, the one thing that you will not be allowed to get away in this country is robbing other rich people. You rob the middle class all day long. Poor people, they don't have any power. They're never going to be able to fight back. You rob other rich people, then they're going to make HBO shows about you and movies, etc. Right? And then you're going to get famous and you're going to go to prison. So that's what ultimately happened to Shkreli. This guy's probably going to have no consequences. But because among the powerful, they really, really do believe that. And look, do you have an obligation to your shareholders? Of course you do. Of course you do. So it's not to say like, oh, who cares about your shareholders? No, they put money into you, they trusted you, etc. So I get what he's saying when he says there's a certain moral obligation to them. That's not nothing, right? But you also have an obligation to your customers. And in this particular field, where it is their lives on the line, you have an extra obligation.
Yeah, here's the thing, there shouldn't, I don't know. I feel like the drug industry, when it comes to healthcare, it should be run completely differently from other like private companies.
No, I understand.
It's different. It's not like a fast food restaurant. It's not McDonald's where it has its investors and shareholders. Like this is different.
No, but look, it's nuanced because I agree with you when it comes to health insurance. There's almost no need for the health insurance companies. They don't exist except for a tiny sliver of the market in the rest of the developed world, where they have single payer healthcare because they don't want to let people die if they don't have health insurance. And that is deeply immoral. That every other country has decided that except us in the developed world. So I agree with you completely there. When it comes to the drug companies, it's a little bit harder because there is something to that profit motive that gets them to do these amazing drugs that do save people's lives. But there is a role for the government, as Adam Smith talked about. A free market will run amok. It will create monopolies and oligopolies, and that is where the government should step in and say, especially in a field that affects people's lives, there's certain, we're not gonna take your profit away, but there are certain rules and regulations you have to follow. If you corner the market, there's no competition and people's lives depend on it. So I don't think that the government has to take over the drug companies. I don't think that would be fruitful, but it does have a role in regulating the markets.
Yeah, look, I don't have enough expertise to make a strong point here, but I do want to look into just different systems because look, I believe in competition driving innovation, but at the same time, you do hear stories about, let's say Cuba, for instance. Like Cuba's healthcare system, it has its flaws. I'm not trying to pretend like it's perfect, but you have researchers there who have come up with a cure, a possible legitimate cure for lung cancer. Right, and they're doing this all under a communistic regime.
I hear you, Anna.
Or communist regime.
Well, look, of course, if you get into the nitty gritty of the healthcare of Cuba versus the US, none of us are gonna on the spot have enough expertise to have that debate, right? But having said that, that is one thing you hear out of Cuba. Have we developed a lot more drugs in America?
No, yes. No, you're right. But maybe there could be a case made that, well, first of all, one thing I want everyone to consider is that the federal government in the United States does provide taxpayer-funded grants for research that these pharmaceutical companies do. So just keep in mind that we as taxpayers, okay, have contributed to the research and the development of these drugs, which then these private companies turn around and price gouge us on.
Well, that's the corruption of government that I can't stand. Because if the American taxpayer paid into creating those drugs, and you're making this huge profit, well, we should get a piece of the profit. Why do we constantly privatize the gains and socialize the losses? As Naomi Klein has pointed out over and over again. And it's a great, great point, and it applies here too. Finally, look, one of the things I'm concerned about, and it is because of a structural issue in America, is that a lot of folks, not everybody, but a lot of people in the business community have gotten used to this perspective that yes, it's my moral duty to make as much as humanly possible. And if it hurts you in any other way, it raises your prices. Sometimes they'll buy parking meters in a particular city, and then they'll raise the prices and they'll give you more fines. And if you're poor, that's devastating to your life. They don't care. They think my only morality and my only moral duty is to maximize profit. No, that's a perverse system. And that perverse system is set up because of our laws. In the law, it says that a corporation, a public corporation, private corporations actually are a little different, but certainly a public corporation must maximize profit. So it's incumbent upon us as American citizens to regain our democracy and to pass laws that say otherwise, that you should make a profit, but that you are allowed to have other considerations like the lives and deaths of our fellow citizens. Other countries have done so. We should look at those and learn from experiences that have worked, that have created stable economies while actually caring about the lives of its own citizens.
Finally, I want to leave you with 2 more quotes from this CEO because it really speaks to what you were just saying, Cenk. He says the following of Martin Shkreli. If he's the only one selling it, meaning the drug, then he can make as much money as he can. This is a capitalist economy, and if you can't make money, you can't stay in business.
I'm sorry, just real quick on that. There's a huge difference between you can't make money, you can't stay in business. That's absolutely true. That's just math, right? And I make plenty of money, I'm already in business, I'm now going to quadruple my price, raise it by 400%, or as Shkreli did, 5,000%. No, you're choosing to do that, and you could, that's when and if there's real competition, then hey, you get to do it. If you've eliminated competition in an unnatural way, then the government should step in. It depends on case by case, but it's not something like, oh, poor Nostrum Laboratories was just about to go out of business until they raised their prices 400%.
Yeah.
That's not anywhere near this fact pattern.
And finally, he wants to justify everything that he's saying by comparing the importance of pharmaceutical drugs to other consumer products. We have to make money when we can. The price of iPhones goes up. The price of cars goes up. Hotel rooms are very expensive. Well, you don't need any of those things to survive.
You don't need to stay in a very expensive hotel room. But if you've got a urinary tract infection, apparently you need your medicine. And so this is not a normal situation. And yes, we are all responsible for our fellow man. And we need to look out for each other. And that doesn't mean that we get away from capitalism. I know some think that. I don't happen to think that. But I do think that going all the way back to Adam Smith, every thoughtful person that has looked at a capitalist system said it obviously needs rules and regulations as any system does. And in America, unfortunately, we have run amok and there's only one rule left, maximize profit. And now they've turned morality on its head as if that is the only moral thing to do, when oftentimes in cases like this, it is actually deeply immoral. Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.